to the 2019 WISE model presentation. The purpose of this one is to give our WISE students a view into what will be expected of them for their presentation and how they're going to be evaluated. So this is the only presentation in which there's an audience for the evaluation process as well. With us today evaluating, we have Ms. Shayna Weir, Corey Neal, Alyssa Watkins, David Warner, and Dr. Charles Fritz. Yeah, you can give a round of applause. So I'm going to turn this over in a minute to Andrew Piccini, who was selected. I'll be honest, this could have been done by any one of you in WISE this year. That's how good a year we had. You all did a phenomenal job keeping up with your journals, doing all that was required of you, but something stood out a little bit about Andrew, so that's why we went with him. So I'm done talking. I'm going to turn this over to Andrew. Enjoy.
Hello, can everyone hear me well?
Yep.
Alright, so thank you for coming and welcome to my evaluators to the model presentation. As you heard before, my name is Andrew Piccini and my presentation is on video games, gaming, and misconceptions. Now if you're anyone that knows me, you know that I'm very passionate about video games and they play a very important role in my life. And so with my WISE presentation and my WISE project, I wanted to embark on a journey about video games and bring forth knowledge to others about the influences of video games and positives, because lots of the articles that you will read and studies focus on the negatives of video games, and that's something that really hits home to me, and so I just want to educate other people about what I know about video games, and so hopefully you'll be able to take something from this presentation. Now, how popular are video games? I'm sure all of you all have been influenced through video games one way or another. And about 64% of households have a device that can play a video game throughout the country. Now, while that may not be very big of a number, it is still very prevalent in everyday life. But something more prevalent is esports. And esports or electronic sports is the competitive play of video games on a professional level for audiences viewing, just like regular sports. One example is the Overwatch League, which is a relatively new esport. And recently, last year, they had their grand finals in New York. Usually, the Overwatch League is held in California and seats up to 450 people in the Blizzard Arena. But at the Barclays Center, over 300,000 viewers were on Twitch, with over 22,000 people seated in the Barclays Center. I was fortunate enough to be one of those 22,000 members in the audience, and it was a truly exhilarating experience. It was just like any regular sports event. There was crowds cheering, there was lights, music, and everything. It was just a really great time. Another more popular, or the most popular esports game is League of Legends. Now, League of Legends is a team-based strategy game where you work with your team to control objectives and overpower the other team. Now, these statistics are from 2017, and if you look on the left graph, you see that the 2017 League of Legends championships, which were the world championships, produced 106.2 million viewers. And now, that same year, for the Super Bowl, there were about 111 million viewers for the Super Bowl. Now, this just shows the difference between traditional sports and esports, and how popular they are, and how many people they've touched. And so, for the main event of my presentation, I would like to have a mini video game tournament for Super Smash Bros. And now, I would like everyone to look under their seat and see if they have a number attached to it. It will be either 1 through 16. Now, if you don't want to participate in the Smash tournament, you can just give your number to someone else if that does want to play. everyone have their number? If you have a number, raise it up, so I know. Alright, so does everyone have a number? Okay. Alright. So one part of esports tournaments and tournaments in general is finding a commentator. And so I've asked one of my good friends, Christian Watson, to be a commentator for this esports event. So now I would like the first four numbers, 1 through 4, if you would please come up to participate. So how this is going to work, there are 16 numbers, so we're going to have 4 rounds of 4 and a 5th round of the finals from each of those 4 rounds. As you can see, Miss Weir is already ready with her own controller. So with numbers 2, 3, and 4, please come up. Alright, so I'm going to hand the mic now to our commentators, Christian Watson and Jay John.
Yeah, let them go up front.
It's weird. No, I don't want to play this weird. I don't want to play this weird.
Can you guys stand over here?
Valentino's down for 1.
Stand on the other side.
Not right in front of that speaker. Behind the speaker. Behind the speaker.
Like behind.
Fox is down, Little Mac down 2. 2 lives with Game Award.
It's only 2 stops. I'm scared.
You see in front of
I'm scared.
Game Award is down. Everybody's on extra life.
Carlos.
Valentino's out for the count. Fox is out. Little Mac again Award. Who's about to get it? Who's about to get it? Oh! Are you?
Actually, I think that challenge is good.
Who's about to get this? Who's about to get it? Guard. Saved by the ledge. Little Mac for the win! Justice for the dog!
Hey, Sean, who won?
Justin won!
Justin's the winner. now, Justin, congratulations. You can take a seat back in your seat. You're going to come back in the 5th round, okay? Alright, so now numbers 5 to 8, please come up. Next four numbers.
Got it. Go ahead. Yo, Jacob. Yo, Jacob.
I apologize, we're having technical difficulties. This is a very common occurrence in tournaments. Okay, so who's player 1 here? Please introduce yourself.
I'm Cedric, and using Captain Value because, yeah.
I'm Yanni, I'm using this Game & Watch.
I'm Zach, I'm using YouTube.
I'm Jacob, I'm using Game & Watch.
Alright, so here are 4 players.
Looks like we have 2 Mr. Game & Watches. Let's see how this game goes. Looks like Captain Falcon, you 2, and Mr. Game & Watch are going at the start.
The black Game & Watch on the top is just out of the fight.
Looks like you 2 is trying to hit everyone in his path.
Captain Falcon has the most damage. He's in danger. Mewtwo just hit a heavy combo.
Game & Watch is in the lead with the lead, so.
Captain Falcon and Mr. Game & Watch have both. Oh, Mr. Game Watch just died. Black Mr. Game Watch only has 1 life left. Oh no! Captain Falcon just left. He's died.
Captain Falcon is out. No, he's gone. He has 1 more life.
Alright, you 2 and white Mr. Game Watch, Gray Mr. Game Watch are still in it with two lives. Great recovery by Mewtwo.
Player 1 is calling in between 2 players, 3 players now.
So player 4 is dodging people. Mewtwo now has 100 damage.
Captain Falcon can't hit it.
Mewtwo is ranking up damage. He's going to get hit out of the map soon. He's got to be careful.
Oh wow!
Mewtwo's still on 2
Great Game & Watch
lives.
is still alive even after that heavy hit.
Oh, Mewtwo is lost. Mewtwo has 1 life left. Everybody has 1 life except Gray Mr. Game Watch.
Go for Game & Watch.
Oh, another heavy
Oh,
hit.
everyone has 1 life.
Everyone has their own last life.
The Captain Falcon has really high damage.
The Falcon's in danger now.
He could be out any second. It's like Mewtwo doing his whole thing in this corner.
Falcon's playing a little scary. Captain Falcon got hit with ice.
Captain Falcon's still fighting with that much damage. Very bold.
Mewtwo going in.
In fact, Captain Falcon did not save himself. Captain Falcon's out.
Couldn't reach the stage.
Now it's Mewtwo and both Game & Watches left.
Mewtwo's in the lead right now.
Oh, Black Mr. Game Watch is getting so much damage.
Great Mr. Game & Watch is flipping pancakes. I don't think that's something you want to do in the middle of the game.
Looks like Black Mr. Game Watch is just trying to see how the game works out. Oh, big hit on Great Mr. Game Watch.
Mewtwo seems like they know what they're doing. I don't know about the Game & Watches. They might have a trick up their sleeve though.
Both Game Watches have 90 plus damage.
Everyone seems to be trying to play as carefully as possible right now.
Oh,
Great
great
Game & Watch. And
Oh,
a double. He's still alive.
Mr. Game Watch could be out any second now. Let's see if he can finish it.
Hey, Mr. Game & Watch, come back.
Oh, it's over! Oh! Mewtwo wins!
Our winner is Mewtwo. Let's go. He won it for the Pokemon League.
Congratulations to Mewtwo. You can come back in the 5th round.
Give a hand for my man Zach. That's a good game. Good game.
Will the next 4 numbers please come up?
Which is, I
That's
believe,
9 through 12.
9, 10, 11, and 12. I already know Ike is coming into battle. Ike is coming into battle. Oh no. I already know that Ike is coming into the battle today.
Oh, Wilson's got his own controller here.
Know that Ike is coming into the battle today.
People that know how to use a switch, how do you disconnect the 5th player? Alright. So, who do we have here? Who started the fight? Alright, we got Kira, Kofi, and Wilson, and Elijah.
My money's on Ike.
So we have Sonic, Ike, and Dark Pit, and Ganondorf. Ooh, Ganondorf just ending
Going
it.
for it. Is Ike is down.
Sonic looks
last
much better than
night
in the trailer.
already.
Ooh, Pit just got a... Sonic tried to recover, but he couldn't.
This might be a quick game, guys. Quick game.
Ooh, Ike just recovered very nicely.
Dark Pit is down.
Ganondorf is only
with
1 with 2.
two lives
Everyone else
left.
has 1. This could be Ganondorf's game, but he's right.
Sonic is down for the count. He is out.
Dark Pit is still recovering. Ooh,
Dark Pit is out.
Right.
Ganondorf and Ike. Last 2.
Ganondorf is still here. Very resilient from him.
Oh man, this could be it.
I made it back in stage.
Ganondorf is hitting those recovers very well. Oh,
Ike gets him
1-1
out.
now.
There's 1
Ganondorf
life
still
to
has
1
less
life.
damage.
Anybody's game right now.
If Ike plays his cards right, he can win this.
Oh, Baba Weave. Get the dub. Ike is making the comeback, playing real smart here. Catch the
Ike is
leg.
keeping Ganondorf at bay, preventing him from getting hits on himself. It seems Ike's strategy is to keep Ganondorf on the edge and keep him from getting any attacks in. There he is off the edge again. It's forcing him to have to climb back up where he's vulnerable.
Ganondorf with him with a huge hit.
Grand Lord hanged on for the win. Elijah for the dub today.
Elijah moves on to the next round.
Elijah for the dunk.
Great game, everyone.
Number 13, 14, 15, and 16, please come up for the next round, please.
You have anything to say before the game starts? Okay, man. Stay positive.
Yo, Arthur, let me take your place.
Okay, so for our fourth round,
Looks like two of our former commentators are not playing. Arthur has another comment. Andrew.
all right. So first in line over here.
Sean,
What are you playing at?
my main man, Greninja, and Christian Watson playing King K. Rool.
We have more technical difficulties. Please switch experts help us. Very good. All right, Leslie. You play Nessie? All right. All right. Second to last round. After this is the finals.
Roy.
Starts over Gandorf, taking a lot of damage. Gandorf already has 71% damage.
Gandorf is getting pushed to the edge. Everyone seems to go back and forth between targets.
Oh, Gandorf, really high damage. Royals has 90%. Oh, Gandorf's
just
got
hit it.
kills. 1 life left. The other 3 players have 2 lives left, but all are high damage. Let's see what happens.
Oh, that was,
Roy's got
a
kicked
bad
out.
situation.
Greninja still hanging on there with 106 damage. And Greninja recovers. He's still alive.
Greninja is out. 1 life left for Greninja. King K. Rool currently has 2 lives and is in the lead.
A Gandorf, they push to the edge. Let's see if he can recover. Oh, Gandorf just died. Everyone has 1 life left. Oh, Roy's taking so much more damage. Let's see what happens. Ooh, Roy comes in. Looks like Roy's hitting everyone left and right.
Everyone's going back and forth between targets. Greninja seems to be trying to play as safe as possible.
King K. Rool. Looks like everybody else but
Roy is
King K.
out.
Oh, Roy's got out. Oh, I think Greninja got out as well. King K. Rool won. Christian advances to the next round.
Hey Zoe, I was hoping for your win.
Okay, so for the 5th round, we need all the winners from the previous rounds to please come up. And whoever wins this 5th round is the winner of the mini tournament.
Alright guys, it's gonna be a spicy match. Everyone here is good. I see some combos. Christian, quick interview. How do you feel right now? You're in the final round.
I feel really excited.
How about you, Elijah?
Good luck.
Justin? Zach?
Mr. Zach, a man of little words. Okay, take that too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know how to use switches. Alright, so it looks like we have two King K rules. The winner of the last match played King K rule. Alright, so Elijah, who are you playing this time? Alright, it's going to be a very interesting match. Christian has people cheering for him in the crowd.
Ooh, very small match. Let's see how this
Extremely
goes.
small map. Oh boy.
Oh, early action. Well, Rob is 53% damage. Let's see what happens.
Everyone is just getting hit left and right.
Very intense gameplay right now.
Because this map is so small, we're really going to see how the skills play out for each of these players. And how they
Rob has got someone out and recovered.
Two eliminations really quick, back to back.
So Rob is on 11% damage. Let's see what happens.
Ooh, King K. Rool just hit Rob out on the map. Rob is down to one more
You two are
life.
still surviving with one life left.
The dark green King K. Rool is making a lot of damage. He can get hit out and eliminated real soon.
Looks like the Grey King K. Rules also high damage. Oh, 97%. Let's see what happens.
There goes the green King K. Rool.
Uh-oh.
Mewtwo. There goes Mewtwo.
Wait, Rob's still surviving here.
King K. Rool
King K.
versus
Rool's
King
in
K.
action. See what happens. He can recover. Looks like Rob's playing it slow. Playing it smart, Rob. Ooh, Rob hits one. Oh, Rob just kicked out. Another King K. Rool.
Seems like
Let's see what happens. It's a close game.
King K. Rool is in real danger.
Oh, King K. Rool got hit.
He's getting forced off the
This
side
is
of the
gonna be it.
map.
This is gonna be it. Oh, Rob is gonna hit back. Oh, Rob is dodging it with the cliff. Good job. Nice. Oh, Rob is got out. And the winner is Christian. Any comments? Any comments?
Thank you for all the viewers.
I was carrying that. No, Christian came in and stole the last kill.
Oh my god, I know he's
He stole the victory.
Alright, congratulations to you, Christian. And everyone else that played. Hold on, gotta log in. Alright, and we're back. Okay, so I hope everyone enjoyed that little mini tournament. If you didn't get to play, we'll have this set up after the presentation and you can play if you would like. And so something I want to discuss after that is the depth and complexity of video games. Now, in a fighting video game like Smash Bros, it's very important to know what you're doing and how your opponent is moving. And many times there's combos in video games such as that. And it takes a very depth memorization. Very large, a lot of work goes into memorizing and learning that game. And here on screen are 6 of the very popular video games that there are. You have MMORPGs, which are massive multiplayer online role-playing games, where basically you're in a virtual world and you're interacting with a very large group of people in a virtual setting. And usually it's like adventurous or fantasy-based. And then you have real-time strategy games where you are versing an opponent, and let's say you have like an army versus their army or a fleet against their fleet. You have to delegate those, your troops and all that stuff. And know how to counteract what an enemy will do. So you also have first and third person action games, which are usually shooter games. So like you have Fortnite, which is a third person action game, or you have your Call of Duties, which are first person games. And those games are very mechanically based. And mechanics is the ability to translate your bodily motions using a controller or device such as a keyboard or a mouse or the controllers that we were using here. You also have platformers, which are like your Mario Bros, the 2D sliding games. Those are more recreational, but it's very important to also memorize movesets of bosses if you're having trouble with a boss. Rhythm and music games can also be very intensive in terms of physical abilities. There's Dance Dance Revolution, where you are dancing to a song and stepping on different foot pedals to play the notes. And you also have a game like Beat Saber, where it's a VR game, virtual reality game, where you put on a headset and you have your controllers in hand and you're swinging like basically a lightsaber, hence the name Beat Saber, and you get to slice the blocks and to the beat of the game. And that's also very physical intensive because you're swinging your arms all the time. But it's also skill based because you have to know the timing of the song and get a feel for all that. Then you also have the fighting games like we just had, where the combos, the animations, and such. And so something else that a lot of people don't realize is that video games really do help the players. Lots of articles focus on negatives, as I have said, but most of the times when you ask video game players how they feel from playing video games, you come up with these responses, and they're really beneficial. So a lot of people play for recreational play, and sometimes they just want some time alone and just want to relax, and so they'll play a video game. Or maybe they want to relieve stress or blow off some steam. Maybe they had a bad day, so they want to go play a video game and just have fun. And that is similar to sports too, which is something I'm going to mention later on, the similarity between video games and traditional sports. You also have skill acquisition, such as visual, spatial, and quick thinking. Now, visual spatial is the ability to visually see objects and process them and know how they move and memorize that environment. And emotional regulation, like I said before, like if we're feeling frustrated from like a hard day at work or school and you just want to play video games and have fun and relax. Enhanced experiences, some people really enjoy the way you're able to go into a virtual reality and just have a different kind of life, like a different adventure, just do something that they normally wouldn't be able to do in real life. Fulfillment too, and positive social connections. So when you play video games, there are typically challenges that you can accomplish. And accomplishing those challenges make you feel like you've done something important because you value those video games. And so you feel fulfilled, and you feel good about yourself. And social connections, many video games are multiplayer based and co-op based. So you can play with friends, or you can make friends online and play with them. And that makes for a much better experience in game because both of you know what you're doing, both of you know how it is when you're playing video games, and you're just having a good time. Now, many experiments do talk about how video games cause aggression, specifically first-person shooters or violent games. Now, that may be true. All those experiments compare those video games to video games on the opposite side of the rating spectrum. So like rated E for everyone, games like Little Big Planet or Super Mario Bros. They're comparing two different types of games and using those measurements of aggression as a justification for what really happens when that's not really true. And yes, while it does increase aggression, but violent video games increase your heart rate because they are fast-paced and rely on quick thinking. And so because of that elevated heart rate, you're more susceptible to acting without thinking. And so you act more on impulse, which is where aggression can come from. that doesn't mean that you're going to be an aggressive person or you're going to just, be an aggressive person. Because just because you may get angry at a video game, that doesn't mean that you're going to go out and that's how you're going to act everyday life. Because there's many factors that go into how people are affected by video games, such as family situation, personal life, emotions, and all that. Now, another very, very popular opinion about video games is that they damage your brain. Now, through my research, I've been able to conclude that they don't damage your brain, but they do affect your brain, and that's something that needs to be cleared up about. So, a lot of the times articles will say that video games decrease the gray matter in your brain, which are basically brain cells. And while that may be true, they don't mention neuroplasticity. Now, neuroplasticity is the ability for your brain to recover from damage or from any kind of stimuli that it takes in. And neuroplasticity is also something that's going on throughout your whole life. So your brain is like constantly changing. And so something else that could be a problem with the experiments and studies that have been told is that the measured gray matter loss, brain cell loss in your brain is really just neuroplasticity at work because it goes on throughout your whole entire life. And so even if that is true that you do lose brain cells from video games, it's a very minimal amount and it's not really going to affect you unless you have an addiction problem. Now, addiction problems are a different story. Video games can be an addiction if you're sacrificing family life, friends, health, any kind of other real life activities for video games. And that's where the problem occurs. And many times video game addiction is falsely accused just for playing a lot of video games. But professional video game players and live streamers for video games, they play at a very high level for entertainment and for very long periods of time, yet we see that they don't have those kind of effects of addiction or anything like that because they balance their life through doing other things like taking breaks or working out in the gym and just putting their mind somewhere else and doing other activities. So for this slide, I made up a list of healthy video game practices that you can do to help your engagement in video games and your experience. So I'm going to hand out a more in-depth piece of paper of information on this slide. It says the same thing but goes more in-depth. So with this, one really important thing about video games is that when they do say that you lose brain cells from video games and such, it's due to habitual playing or forming habits inside of video games. And so a really easy way to counter this is to learn the video game that you're playing and enhance your performance in video games by doing so. And so understanding how the game works, the game mechanics, and understanding how the game works and the game mechanics can not only enhance your play, but also make you a smarter player, and improve how well you play. So on this list, it also addresses aggression or like frustration in video games. And many times, if a game is really frustrating for you, that day might not be your day. So an alternative to that is that you can just put the game down.
Please, it's 7th period now.
An alternative to frustration in playing video games is just you put that game down, just pick up a new video game that's more relaxed, or you just put video games aside completely and just do something else to take your mind off of it. Also very similar to sports in video games is stretching. Since you're using your fingers, your hands, and your wrists, it's very important to keep those rested and also up to health, up to speed with how you are here. So it's important. So it's good to stretch your hands, wrists, and neck and forearms, because if, let's say you're a professional player and you injure one of your like a finger or something, you can be out of play for weeks at a time until you heal. And in professional video game playing, it's very important to be on board and on your team to be playing, because this is very difficult to make money as a professional video game player.
You want to stay here? You have to stay the whole period.
Now, finally, I want to bring to attention that video games can also help the community. With my WISE project, I originally wanted to do a much large video game tournament here at school, but over time I realized that was too intensive for all the other work I had to do, so I decided to opt for a different option. And at the time I was working with our local Microsoft team at the Westchester Mall, and we were able to come up with the idea of having a charity event using video games to help fund the Gamers Outreach Foundation. Now, the Gamers Outreach Foundation helps provide recreational assistance to children in hospitals. And many times, children in hospitals, if they're stuck inside their hospital room, they can't go out and socialize or make friends or anything. It makes for a very negative experience in the hospital. So what Gamers Outreach likes to do is they provide these mobile stations with video game consoles to bring to these hospitals with children stuck in their hospital rooms. And so these children are able to have a much more happier experience as they're recovering in the hospital. And so the charity event that we have planned with Microsoft, is going to be hopefully sometime in June. We haven't figured out an exact date yet, but this is also something we've talked about doing regularly, like monthly or something, or bi-monthly, as a way to just bring news to video games and the benefits that they can pose. And Gamers Outreach actually has an annual event called Gamers Forgiven, and where they invite a bunch of popular live streamers to the event, and they raise a ton of money for these children in the hospitals. And this is just a really great way of showing how video games can benefit the community. Something else that I also have thought about is that since I believe that video games are very similar to sports, I feel that taking those same ideals in sports of practice and thought processes and just thinking through when you play video games can be applied, can be taken from sports and applied to video games, such that if we treat video games like a sport, it can benefit all the players that do play. And yeah. Thank you.
First, so I'll walk around with this microphone, and we'll put Andrew on the spot.
No, I got it. So, like, is there, so, like, how, if you, like, join for esports, right, and, like, if you, like, win, like, how much money, like, if you, like, pro or something, do they make a lot of money for that, or like win like some kind of trophy or something? Is it successful and like they can like
Well, last year I wrote a research paper on esports as a career, and in doing so I was able to prove that esports is indeed a sport, and while many people may not agree with that, it is a very convincing paper. I can show that to you after if you want. But the amount varies for esports professionals, and it's very difficult to become an esports athlete. But if you do become an esports athlete, it is very prosperous and successful. But it's also very intensive.
Hi. Oh, that's loud. Okay. Since you mentioned that you can do so many good things with esports, like how you can bring it to hospitals since children can't really communicate and other stuff like that. So how do you think that people can break the stigma of esports rather than it just being like, oh, you're just playing too many video games, or it's going to damage your brain, or all these other, because there's so many good things that you say in your presentation. So how do you think we can break the stigma of that?
A good way we can break the stigma is by providing the real information to people, just like this. Because a lot of the studies that talk about the negatives for video games are very biased and one-sided. And because of that, since they're so easily accessible, so many people take that bias and believe it themselves. But they really don't. Those studies don't account for a lot of different factors that go into video game playing and the player's experience. And also with the rise of esports, since it's becoming such a popular thing, with esports training facilities popping up everywhere, then I think it just takes time, really.
Also, the esports tournament was really cool. I would have never thought of that.
Did you ever get the chance to, well, I see that you did a bit of research on the correlation between video games and violence levels. Did you find that there is a correlation that like video games cause violence, since that's one of the stigmas that are out there? Or did you find that it was more just circumstantial, or that there were other factors in those cases that really video games had nothing to do with it? It was just prior circumstances that made it happen that way?
Well, I've been playing first-person shooter games for 12 years now, and you can ask anyone that knows me. I'm not an aggressive person at all, but I will admit that I have had my moments of frustration and anger where I did not properly approach the situation with myself. And so I really just think it just takes practice, just like with any sport, to just keep a calm mind and know what you're doing. And that's another thing with like the program idea that I had, to teach video game players how to properly play video games in a healthy way. And yeah, like also violent video games such as first-person shooters or anything really fast-paced will increase your heart rate, and that does make you more susceptible to response thinking as opposed to cognitive thinking. So you just think on impulse.
Okay, my question is regarding something that's been very prevalent in video games recently, that's called microtransactions, where you can make in-game purchases. People have been arguing, especially legislative officials, that this has become a more addictive aspect of video games, and they're looking to outlaw that. Can I have your opinion on that, and if you feel it's a problem, and if so, how we can address it?
Well, microtransactions, if they are purely for cosmetic reasons, or so cosmetics in games, they're basically like how you look in the game or how the game looks from your perspective for your own benefit. But sometimes there are microtransactions where it's what they say is pay to win, so you pay money and you get like this super cool ability which gives you an advantage over everyone else. Personally, I think stuff like that is unfair, but if it's purely for design purposes and just like eye candy like that, I think it's fine. But yeah, for stuff that's like where you have to pay money for an advantage over other people, I think that's definitely a problem. I don't think it could be addictive though.
Hey, so I have, I guess, 3 questions. The first one is, I would normally ask how you got interested in video gaming, but it seems to be so popular that the whole question is, how did you become more interested in video gaming than the average bear?
I probably became more interested in video games as I grew up, and I was more influenced by different types of video games around me, as well as through my friends who played other types of video games that were interested to me. And also when I saw the rising of esports, I became very interested in that and the career paths that they influence and career paths that surround it.
Aha. So that leads to my next two questions. First, say in the last 5 years, since I don't expect you to be aware back decades, how have video games evolved in the past 5 years? What are the biggest trends? What's changed?
I think easily one of the biggest trends is the rise of esports. As the years go by, esports just becomes more and more popular with the number of viewers that they bring in for events and attendance for events. Also, game development as with technology has been improving at an accelerated rate. So like your graphics and software, hardware for the games, those improve. That's really about it that I can think of right now.
Okay, and you said that you came up with a paper in which you talked about the legitimacy of esports as sports and also about possible careers. Do you see this as a potential avenue for you in terms of a career as an adult? Involvement in esports?
Maybe not esports specifically, but working with the guys at Microsoft and working for the community, I think this is a very possible thing that I can do in the future and something that I do want to continue working on, such as that program to help teach players how to healthily play video games and like that.
Very good, thank you.
In the interest of time, we're just going to move into the evaluation process. If you want to ask a question later on, I'm sure Andrew will be happy to answer. So this is the only time that the audience gets to see the evaluation. Usually we ask everybody to leave so that it's just the panel and the presenter. But today you all get to see how this is done. So the rules are as follows. You'll be provided with a paper to take notes, but we ask that you don't respond to any of the comments so that we can get through everyone. And then at the end you'll have a chance to respond to anything you'd like. I'm going to get you a chair also. So we'll go right down the line, starting with Ms. Weir.
The overall presentation was great. I really like the idea of actually using a mini tournament to display what, just to show the audience what it would be like to participate in a lot of esports. So like, I also am a big gamer and I've been to, not Overwatch particularly, but League of Legends tourneys, and just the feel of it is really cool. So it's nice to see other people, get to experience that and get hyped up. Even if they don't play the game, it's still like, you get caught in the hype with it. So I think it's really cool to show them that. Kind of just going down the list here, your journal was really well reflected. You were short on the physical ed requirements, however, the different types of activities that you did I thought was very good. Your research, just skimming through it looks very well organized, and it definitely is prevalent to your topic as well. I did want to mention that what I meant by my question earlier is that, and you might have seen it in the research, is that there really isn't too big of a correlation. Usually when you hear about like video game violence or like people, in like one thing I can think of, like how some girls had murdered another girl in the name of Slender Man or something. Just like cases like that, it's really not with video games, and that I think you did a really good job with showing how video games can be beneficial and can be healthy, and that cases like those are just really way out there. To blame video games is not fair, because what about the rest of the people that play? As I said, 64% of America has consoles in their household. Your PIG articles were also good. The bibliography, again with the research, I thought was really well researched. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more on, like video games itself and its benefits more so, or at least equally to the amount of research you did on like esports. But overall, I think that your presentation was really good, and just as a presentation kind of tidbit, try to be mindful of your audience. So like if a lot of stuff is going on, just slow down your presentation, think about what you're going to say next, try to organize your thoughts instead of trying to like, oh yeah, this fact too, and this fact too, because that's just nitpicking, but overall I think you did a really good job.
Piggying back what Ms. Weir just said, I really liked your presentation. It was very engaging with the tournament. I feel that some presentations lose out on the fact because we're just spitting out facts during the presentation, but actually having something where you're engaging people and you have a lot of people going up, you get to talk to each other. Some people there have not played a game with the other person, so it's a good opportunity to meet other people. So I feel that was a very high point of your project. Going down the list here, I looked at your journal yesterday. Very interesting, great. Something to add in terms of physical education. I know you've mentioned the activities you've done. You've put down a cumulative amount of hours for what you were doing. I would have liked to have seen the individual event for each journal to see if you were diversifying what you were doing. Were you just running the entire time? You entered a fencing tournament at some point? So something that's more engaged. You get to see like your day-to-day life. So a big portion of why is just kind of chronicling what you do in your daily life. So in the future, you kind of look back and say, hey, I do this, or you can learn off that. Furthermore, in terms of your research, I really liked it, all of it connected towards your project. I also want to piggy off your pig articles. I loved how some of your pig articles were straight pig. It's politics and things that are happening in the world, but some of them directly related to your project with the microtransactions, the one the state senator is trying to take them out of video games. That for me is really personal because that's my life and someone in another country is losing out on something because of changes in what people think. So it's really cool that you connected your pig articles to what was prevalent in your project. Furthermore, for bibliography, admittedly, it's right here. I didn't look through too much, but given based off your research, probably very interesting as well. Outside of that, for your final presentation, that's that tournament really engaging. The only thing I could really criticize there is presentation skills. Obviously, we're all students, so we're not used to presenting that on stage. So the what you're thinking about, obviously we're all gonna have those problems, but something you build by presenting over and over again. So even myself, I'm sure I'll have those problems. So again, something to work on. But the overall presentation itself and the journals were really interesting, and I'm very engaged. Thank you.
Hi, Andrew. Okay. Your journals, it's almost like you're telling a story. It's like you can really see that you're researching, you're doing so much, and it really shows that you're interested. So I thought they were great. Like, honestly, when I was looking through your journals, it was just like, wow, you're really going through this. It's like you can see you grew up with it. You can see that you're really into it, and you can see all the video games you play with and what you were researching and how it was like connecting to your project. And here it is. It's really cool. And in your physical education, personally, I would do a little bit more. Like, I see you did cross country, and then you ran a little bit. Yeah, I like that. So personally, I would do a little bit more, but overall, that was fine. Your research, you really know your stuff, and it really helps to know, because reading your journals, granted, I'm not a super big video game person, but my brother is, so I know a little bit here and there, and sometimes I play with my brother. So the research actually really helped me to understand it a little bit more as to why so many people like video games and why it's such a big thing, and esports are a big thing, and honestly, that was cool. Your pig assignments were pretty good overall. There's really nothing to say about your pig assignments specifically, because reading them, it just seemed like well organized, and you could see it connected towards your project too. Your bibliography was perfectly fine. Your final presentation, I'm stuck on the entire esports tournament. I thought that was so dope, honestly. It's just, overall, I would have never thought of something like that if I were in your shoes. Like, I would have been completely lost. So, and it was a popular video game. Like, I always see most of my friends playing Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Ultimate, almost all the time. So it's kind of just like, wow, you really connected it towards your project and with something that a lot of people are into. And the overall experience, I was really interested. Like, granted, I feel like video games are a big thing, and it can really help someone's mental health. And a lot of people tend to just see video games as, oh, it's not a hobby, you're just wasting your time, it's not beneficial. But you have people in esports who are doing it as a career. And I thought overall that was really cool, and you really know what you're doing, and I really like that. So overall, it was great.
Okay, down the line from item to item. First, the journal. You started the journal in the middle of the action. There was no like introductory, this is who I am, this is how I got involved in this. It was like, let's see, my first quote. Meeting with Mr. Smith underwent. Mr. Smith excited about the idea of video gaming tournament for the Greenburgh community. So I felt like, I just spawned in the middle of a fight or something. And what I learned is that you're sort of Drew the negotiator. Okay, so you negotiated the first sentence in the journal. You're negotiating with the principal of the high school, right? And then the next thing you're doing, you're off negotiating with the Microsoft representative in order to get resources, and then you're making flyers, and then you're negotiating with the digital arts people to try and bring them in and organize, talk. If the e-gaming club were a rock band, you'd be like the manager. Okay. So I've got an impression of you as kind of the guy of action throughout the thing. I was happy with that. My favorite quotes: "Take the risk of getting out of that corner, and your brain won't turn to mush." Okay, so very interestingly, you went over the main objection about losing gray matter, and the thing that I don't think you actually put in the presentation is that you went back and said, well, you're not taking into account what happens when old people who are test subjects and have no gaming experience go and try and play these games. So the tendency is to go park yourself in a corner where nobody can get at you, and then just be a sniper. And if you sit there for 90 hours and only find your way back to your favorite corner, then you do lose spatial gray matter because you're not taking advantage of the game. The same thing would happen in real life if you were off duck hunting and just sat in the same blind all the time. So, that makes sense to me. And I think that studies need to take these sorts of things into account, and you actually, in your bibliography, cited some of that. So that was an important piece for me. Second quote, "I should wear that nice shirt I stole," crossed out, "borrowed from my brother's closet." It's a nice shirt. Okay, so yes, so you humanize. Yes, now you know about the shirt. Okay, it humanized things and brought it down to a level of, okay, this is a real guy. In terms of things that went on in the background, you're a busy guy, so while you were doing all these things in the foreground for gaming, and that was your major focus, you actually managed to go to various technical institutes and ended up with SUNY Polytechnic, and so that was yes, so that was going on. You were helping other people, setting up Blender for somebody named Kofi. You were studying for the AP Physics test. You were running the Esports club, and you were into speed typing, like 95 words per minute. Woo! Right? Yeah. Oh, you got to 98. Okay. So all this stuff is going on. So I'm feeling what it's like to be a high school student in a high energy environment. So I was happy about that. Last quote. "We began as high school students who put together tournaments and created a gaming go-kart, a portable gaming cart that can be donated to hospitals and allowed for use by child patients." Okay, so there's this outreach piece which you don't normally, I haven't traditionally thought about as being associated with gamers, the idea that you go out and do something nice for somebody else. So that was an important thing and a real sign of balance. So I was overall pretty happy with the journal. The physical education, let's see. You had a separate document from the journal where you listed all the things that you did. So there's jogging, fencing, campus tour walking, carrying groceries, moving a fishing boat, building a grill, working at the Greenburgh Taste Off, and working at the flea market. Okay, so maybe you're doing cross country running a little bit more, and you could have said a little bit more about it, but it was there. It was enough. It was adequate. The bibliography. Great descriptions, okay? So you have your sources lined up, and I'm used to asking people to go for hard copy books, but this is a new topic, so most of the knowledge about gaming is probably online, so that's probably a good area to go into. I like the fact that you reviewed both sides of the equation, so there are people who think that video games are turning your mind to mush or making you overly aggressive, and there are people who are on the other side, and you review both sides, and so that balance was very important. I was happy about that. Research, I think we've gone over. Bibliography is good. The final presentation, my big fear going into this final presentation was, oh my God, this guy his entire WISE project is about doing this big event. And he hasn't done his big event, and they put him out front. So the big event hasn't happened, so what's he going to talk about in his final presentation? So the solution was, let's do a slightly scaled down version of a big event in the presentation. That was good. the way things are in larger tournaments, what you just saw on a larger scale. So that was a wonderful solution. I was happy about that. You presented yourself well. You engaged well with the audience. Don't see any signs of brain damage. So good job.
A lot has already been said already. When we spoke a couple days ago, you know that there was an event that transpired, and some of your work was based on that. No need to get into that, but how you were able to be dynamic and change and do a totally 180-degree pivot from that was, I thought, remarkable. The PowerPoint seemed comprehensive and concise. I think at some points you spoke extemporaneously about this piece that you were doing. I also liked the aspect of the tournament in-house, although I felt it ran a little bit long, but that's fine. I'm a person that likes research and having a comprehensive view of the research that's out there. And a lot of the sources that you used, I was impressed because they were scholarly in nature. This just wasn't reading the back of a cereal box and, citing that. This was some stuff that was high impact. And what it reminded me a little bit of is a dissertation's literature review. So we got to do a little bit of work on that, but still, overall, it was pretty impressive. I'm not an easy person to impress, and in that regard, that was well done. As far as the physical education piece, again, I'm a little bit biased because I am your mentor. I've seen you in the weight room, you've been doing other things, which is great, so that's fine. But I have to tell you that I was impressed by the scope and the comprehensive vision of the research that you brought in. You were talking about social aspects, scientific aspects, political and economic aspects, all of these things, multi-sided, so it wasn't just triangulation in terms of research, but it was multifaceted that I was impressed about. One item, and this is something that I do, I tend to move around a lot when I'm speaking. We do move back and forth. So this was sort of one of your first tastes of speaking in front of a packed house, and other than that, you were able to nail it. You had composure, you were able to control the flow. You've got a lot of strong personalities in here, so you were able to keep people at bay and keep the action moving, which I thought was impressive. I also liked that this hasn't been done, but you were still able to give a very good thumbnail sketch of what could be, what possibly will be in terms of the charity aspect and the tournament. So I have nothing further to say. I'm very proud of you and you did a great job.
Okay, all right. So, addressing what you said, Alyssa, about the gaming tournament, the reason I was inspired to do that is because I saw a lack of video game tournaments for the games that I played, and so I wanted to provide an opportunity to others for the games that they played here at the school and the community. And so that's where that came from. But of course, it became too intensive for the work that I'm doing now with senior year, and so therefore I opted for the charity event. Addressing what you said, Mr. Warner, about the corner quote, I guess I could have definitely included that in the presentation because that provides a better visual of like what goes on, and yeah. Other than that, I don't really have any other comments. Yes, physical education could have been much better. I definitely do have to start running again. But yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you for your evaluations.
Wise students